Well, good morning, everyone. Some of you may know this is take two. Gotta love technology this morning. This is Brenda Sanchez. I bring you these Military Mondays every single Monday morning. And why? Because I'm a retired Air Force major and served 27 years in the Air Force. And I love highlighting veteran business owners or spouses of currently serving military or veterans to get the word out about their business. And so today I have an amazing lady on. Yes, she is a badass. And I've learned so much from her. I really enjoy what I've learned. But today I have Diane Kephart on. Thank you so much for being on this morning, Diane.
Thank you, Brenda. I appreciate you having me. And technology is going to cooperate this time.
Yes, it is. So Diane served 8 years in the Air Force. And so Diane, would you share with the audience what you did in the Air Force, and then we'll move into what you're doing today?
Absolutely. Well, I was an intel officer, and my late husband was also an intel officer. I think God knew I was one of those spouses that couldn't just have the husband deploy somewhere and not know what's going on. So he gave us the same clearance so we could go talk before one of us deployed. But I basically would take information from all different sources, put it together in a briefing for either the commander, or if it were a battle staff environment because of a crisis or contingency, for them. And then I also got to help train A-10 pilots, and they are so down to earth. I really enjoyed working with them, although, you know, sometimes briefing afternoon on a Friday, you had to be really interesting. So I worked on
that. And what skills did you learn in the military? Because we have a lot of people that might be watching that are currently serving, and they may be getting ready to retire or to separate, and they're thinking they want to just step back into government contract work or something. So I want them to hear what skills we learn in the military, or that you learned, that you think make you ideally suited to be a business owner today.
Well, I think I've taught my kids that we go through things in life to prepare us for what we're going to be doing later. And I think a lot of skills that we learn in the military can transfer. I mean, I don't know about you, but I moved every 2 years my entire time in the service. And, you know, you pretty much have to hit the ground running, get up to speed, learn things, and become very proficient and efficient very quickly, right? And I think that especially helps if you're going to be an entrepreneur, if you're thinking about starting your own business, or, you know, starting something that there may be a franchise model for, where you don't have to start from scratch. But I think that is huge. I think professionalism, you know, we always talk about if you're not on time, or if you're not early, you're late. I still carry that with me. And most people know that if I'm not early, that they should probably be checking the hospitals or the ditches or something, right? And I think a dedicated attitude toward a mission or toward a cause. You know, just knowing that we are not going to give up, we're going to persist, we're going to find a way to do it. I think a lot of veterans, you know, you tell them it can't be done, and they're going to say, well, watch me.
Yeah.
It's not you know, an attitude of arrogance. It's an attitude of we'll figure it out. And I think that you see that a lot, especially in the Air Force. I mean, you and I are Air Force sisters. We got to bring that out, right?
Yeah.
But also working with a team. And there are a lot of transferable skills that if you sit down and think about it, even communication, a lot of people don't have those skills, but we've kind of honed them in our service.
I love that. And as you were saying that, I was thinking, if you're an employer listening right now, and you've always been worried about hiring a military person, what Diane just said encompasses the military in general. I mean, yes, I'm kind of stereotyping, but I would say 90% of the people that come out of the service have those type of skills, and they're a great employee. So if they aren't cut out to be an entrepreneur, seriously consider them for a job, because they can bring a lot to your business.
Absolutely.
So, you did Intel in the service, and you were constantly evaluating things and making decisions based on data. And that's kind of, in a way, what you do today. So tell us about Women of Justice, League of Justice.
Ladies of Justice.
Ladies of Justice. I got it partly right.
No worries, no worries. Well, Ladies of Justice, we believe in protecting and empowering people to make sure that they have access to their rights. I'll tell you a quick story which kind of explains how I got started, what I'm doing, and then we can talk a little bit more about it. But I mentioned my late husband. Basically, 10 years ago, he started having back pain where he couldn't lie flat at night. And so I, being the dutiful wife, made the chiropractic appointment, took him there. And when the chiropractor said, we can't help you, you need a lumbar MRI, we started about 12 days of testing. And in 12 days, we went from back pain to stage 4 colon cancer, inoperable. And how everyone's life kind of flipped upside down last year, we went through that as a family 10 years ago. And so at that point, you really start thinking, well, we need to have the will, the living will, the medical power of attorney, the financial power of attorney in place. And we went and hired an attorney. He was also a veteran. So we felt good working with him, but it was really expensive. And I'm glad that we had that in place, because he only survived 13 months from diagnosis. And I had 3 kids. They were 21, 18, and 15 at the time. So it was my son's junior year of college, my daughter's senior year of high school. So you can imagine there was no drama there, right? And my other daughter's freshman year of high school. And I was working at a nonprofit serving veterans after he had passed, and I loved what I did. I mean, just like you, military families, veterans, they have my heart. But I realized that I was making a great impact on veterans, but I was not there for my kids like I needed to be. And about 6 months after Brian passed, I had called the same attorney that we had used. And I had said, look, I'm a single mom of 3. I've got questions. I need documents reviewed. They're telling me I need some letters to get him off an account. Basically, help. Can I come see you? And he said, yeah, we'll start at about $2,500. Bring your checkbook and see what we can get done. And I understand, he paid a lot for school, and that's his hourly rate. But I also was a single mom with now 2 kids in college, daughter in high school. And I was really enjoying what I was doing, working for the Red Cross serving veterans. But my son had a final college baseball game up in Oregon, and I could not get off work to be there. We've all done that in the military, right? You have plans, you can't get off work, or the mission or an exercise or something changes them. And when he sent me a picture of a yellow rose that another mom had accepted in my place during his final college baseball game, during his senior recognition, when he had no family in the stands, I realized I needed to do something different. And about a couple months prior, a friend had shared Legal Shield with me, and Ladies of Justice is a division of Legal Shield. And it was so interesting because due to the crowdfunding model that we use, instead of paying $2,500 to that other attorney, I paid less than $35 a month. And in my first 30 days, they did everything for me the other attorney wanted to charge me the $2,500 for. And I thought, wow, how many people can I help that either can't pay that $300 an hour or don't want to, right? And so that was in the back of my mind. But remember, I was working full time. So a lot of people on here probably are thinking about starting a business, but maybe they already have a job or something. Well, I worked part-time on my business while I was working full-time. And when I was working for the Red Cross, I was full on Red Cross, But I met people at 7 in the morning, I met them at lunch, and I met them after work because those were the times I had. And the blessing is within 7 months, I was able to become a volunteer where I used to be an employee. And I've had my business. Yesterday was my 8-year anniversary of starting my business. And it's 7.5 years now that it's all I've done for income. But the greatest thing about that is when my youngest daughter came and said, Mom, will you chaperone my choir trip to Ireland, Wales, and London? I didn't have to say, let me see if I can get off work. I said yes. When my middle daughter called and said, Mom, can you come up in a week and a half? My maid of honor is going to be in town. I'd like you to be there to pick out my wedding dress. Once again, I didn't have to say, let me see if I can get off work. I could say yes, and then, make it happen, get the plane ticket. So over those 8 years, I've been able to protect and empower more than 2,000 small business owners, families, and employees by giving them the same gift that I received, was the ability to not consider the cost before considering my rights and making the best decisions.
That's awesome. And I love that story. I get chills every time I hear that story that Diane says, because there's many of you, I've been there, where you couldn't go to something back. I can now, but in the past, when I was in the military, I couldn't go to things. Occasionally you'll have a boss that understands and you'll have a job that is somewhat flexible that you can do that. But for the most part, you can't be there for those type of activities. And there's been many activities at night that I'm sure many of our viewers expected to go to, and then the mission required them to stay at work late, and you weren't able to be there. So if you, like Diane, are done with that and are sick of putting your family and your kids second, I'm not telling you to get out of the service, but like Diane said, and like I did, many of the viewers know, I started our business on the side of working full-time in the reserves. And then when I retired, I had my plan B all laid out. So we're not saying quit the service. So anybody watching that's a critic, we're not telling you to get out of the service. We're just telling you it might be a good idea to have a side thing going on, a side gig of some kind, that if God forbid something happens and you get discharged medically or you need to step away from the service, you have something to slide into to help you with that transition and that income. So thanks so much for sharing that story. It always, like I said, it always hits me and I get chills as a mom. I mean, we're moms and we're Air Force sisters, and we've talked about the different people we've known as we were chatting. It was like, oh, so-and-so. And it's just kind of crazy how it's such a small world in the military. You'd think military serves clear across the world, but yet Diane and I met and we were instantly connected because we knew people. We didn't know each other in the service, but we knew people that we both had served with, which was pretty cool. So it's, 7 degrees of separation, especially in the military. I think it's more like 4. Yeah, I think it's more like 4 degrees of separation. So what words of advice would you give? Actually, before I even ask that question, something I thought of when you were sharing your story is, you help people with wills. And many people on here, especially if they're in the military, are going to say, but I can get that done on base. I can get that done by the legal office on base. Explain the difference and why you would want to use Legal Shield versus maybe going on base to get your will.
Well, and actually it's a little broader than that, because I do have military who are members of our service who I serve. And what I've told them is, if you can get something complimentary in the military, there's no problem getting it done there. Brian and I, we had not updated our will, living will, medical power of attorney since we got out of the Air Force. And so it was high time to be done. And, just like when we got hit with all the uncertainty of last year, when we got hit with that stage 4 colon cancer diagnosis, once again, I believe we go through things so we can help other people through what we've been through. And I was able to find peace of mind by having that in place. I do know that the base legal offices are facing some shortages and talking with some people, and sometimes people can't get in there. Since the will, the living will, the medical power of attorney, and the financial power of attorney are complementary with membership for both the member and the spouse or domestic partner, we don't discriminate. If they can't get into the base legal office to get it done, give me a call and I'm happy to help. But what if they get a moving traffic violation? A lot of times the base legal office is not going to help with that, right?
Right.
Hate breaking the law, but if it's at all defensible, with the membership, our attorneys will go to court with the member to try and get the points reduced, because I think we can all agree we pay enough for car insurance, right? And I'll give you one example. My son, when he was in college, and he was on my plan, because as long as kids are never married, either living at home, full-time in college, or serving in the military, they can be on their parents' plan for up to age 26. And whichever comes first of those, then they age off the plan. But he got a $4,485 ticket up in Oregon. He's on my car insurance. Okay. I saw your face, right?
Yeah.
And it's because it was in a construction zone and everything was doubled. But when the attorney went to court with him, they were able to negotiate down to a 1-point non-moving traffic violation and $155 fine. Now, being
Much
the
better.
Air Force mom, right, I made him pay the fine so he'd feel the sting, but my insurance only took a 1-point hit. So that's kind of an example. Another thing, probably a lot of people watching may have kids getting ready to go to college or over the age of 18. I found out the hard way that you want the medical power of attorney for your kids before they leave home, because my daughter had some outpatient surgery. She was over 18. It was my insurance, my copay, my car driving there, and my backside sitting in the waiting room. And they didn't have to tell me anything until she woke up and gave them permission, because I didn't have the medical power of attorney. Now you can bet we rectified that, but that was a wake-up call to me. There are some things that just kind of jar you in life, and you're like, wow, because sometimes the law may not be logical, but it's legal. And what the law is they don't have to tell you anything. So that's something that we help people with as well. Before people sign a contract or document, every now and then I see military members or veterans that will just sign without having their attorney review it. And it's usually because of the cost. Well, if it's complimentary with membership, why not check your rights before you put your signature on there? And I was just talking to a friend of mine who was buying a car. They were at the dealership. They're passing the paper across the table, sign here. And he said, well, let me run it by my attorney first. And they're like, oh, you don't need to do that. This is a boilerplate contract, And he said, no, the way that I run my life is I run it past my attorney first. Well, the attorney called him back and said, look at paragraph 4. And he's like, what's paragraph 4? They had a $750 vehicle prep charge, which is basically a nice car wash and dry and maybe a vacuum, that by law is allowed to be in that contract. But the attorney said, go ahead, cross that out, initial it, and then, everything else is good. And so when he, went back to the guy and said, my attorney said to take this out, initial it, I've done it. He's like, nobody ever does that. I need to get my general manager. Well, the general manager came in, saw what had been initialed, kind of winked at him, initialed next to it, and saved him that $750. But over the term of the car loan, that could have been a whole lot more. So we always say it's better to be proactive and preventive instead of reactive and defensive, because that's when it gets expensive. And just the stories that I get from members of how we've helped, just like in the military, we're helping people, we're serving people. We have that attitude of service. And I love our Air Force core values, integrity first, service before self. and excellence in all that we do. And you talk about carrying those in either as an employee or an entrepreneur, it's going to make you stand out because we do have those ingrained in us.
I love that. And I can add, I actually applied for a credit card and it was supposed to be 0 interest for 21 months and no balance transfer fee. It said 0. And so we applied for it and it transferred a balance, and the credit card statement came and we got charged $400 and some odd for a balance transfer fee. And I do have Legal Shield. And so I called Legal Shield, passed it over to them. They wrote a letter to the credit card company. And 2 months later, I saw that wiped off of my credit card. So yeah, I mean, 400, think about it, at 30 some odd dollars a month, it takes a lot of months to cover that 400. So it just takes a few times using the service to make it more than worth the while. And that, like you said, that peace of mind that if something does happen, that you've got the coverage, and they'll even, like you said, go to court with you a certain number of hours, depending on how long you've been a member. So you get to bank those legal hours for years. So if you don't use it for years and then something happens, you've got a lot of legal hours that you can tap into in court.
Yeah, that's if you're sued civilly. But I'll give you one example. I had a client that someone hit him with a frivolous lawsuit. We never see that, right? And they were hoping he would pay him a couple $1,000s to go away. But when his attorney called and said, you know, he has 300 hours built up, we'll see you in court, because it starts with 60 hours and then it adds 60 every year till it caps out after 5. You know, it's amazing how quickly that frivolous lawsuit evaporated. But with your story, think about it, Brenda, if you didn't have the service, you have a $400 overcharge, but how much is it going to cost you to go talk to an attorney and have a letter written? Probably right about 400 or more.
So then it's, you just don't do it. You just pay the 400, right?
Right, but that's how I love when we empower people. I like to call them motivational letters, because they motivate people to do what they should have done in the first place. I'll tell you one of the story that really blessed my heart, because it was a family friend. And she actually used to work with my late husband. He was an engineer in an engineering firm. But she went into the hospital in December a couple years ago, and she had rings on her fingers when she was admitted. And when she was being discharged, it's amazing, none of her rings could be found when they were looking for, you know, her personal effects. And for 18 months, she had been calling the administration, trying to get them to return a call to pay attention to her. She was easy to ignore, right? Well, she got the membership, talked to the attorneys. They wrote a letter on her behalf. And she called me almost in tears. She had gotten a check for $1,200, which is what she had said the value of the rings was. But because of that motivational letter coming with 40 attorneys' names at the top, she was no longer as easy to ignore. And so they took care of her. And those are the things where if we can empower people with their rights, we can't change the law to make you right, but if we can reinforce the rights. And another thing that, you know, military members should know, we have 24/7 emergency service. So let's say, heaven forbid, you're in an injury accident. You can just tap the number on your phone and be talking with an attorney before you're having to give a statement or anything like that. Let's say you're a victim of identity theft. You get pulled over for a busted taillight, and suddenly there's a warrant for your arrest in Kentucky, and you've never been in Kentucky. You can tap the app. And we actually, that's an actual situation one of my members had. Someone had cloned their driver's license, gotten a DUI in Kentucky, didn't show up for court. It wasn't in their name. And then a friend of mine had a busted taillight Friday night, 9:30, driving home, and they got pulled over, and there was a warrant for their arrest in Kentucky. Now, how many times do you think the officers hear, it's not me, it's not me, it's not me? But he said, you know, officer, I need to call my attorney. And he's like, if you can call an attorney at 9:30 at night on a Friday night, I'll get my, you know, captain out here. So he tapped the app, had an attorney on the phone. The attorney talked to the officer on his behalf, and he didn't spend the weekend in jail. They said, come in Monday, we'll get this figured out. I've spoken with your attorney. But how many people would not have had anyone to call at 9:30 on a
Right.
Friday? And, there were some college kids that they all jumped into a car. Kids do that in college, right? Didn't know that the son of the dad's car, that there was a gun under the seat. The kids got pulled over. Somehow they allowed the car to be searched, probably because they didn't know their rights. The gun was found, and all four of them, this was like Friday night at 11 because it was college, are being handcuffed. And one of them says, hey, wait, my mom told me if I'm ever in a situation, I need to tap this red button and talk to an attorney. And the guy's like, okay, we'll call your attorney. And basically, in talking with the attorney on his behalf, he was released because it was proven, that it wasn't his gun. And he said, well, what about my three buddies? And the officer said, I didn't speak to their attorney. His three friends spent Friday night, Saturday, Sunday night, and Monday night in general population before they went in front of the judge on Tuesday to determine who that belonged to. So once again, just the peace of mind that knowing when your kids can't be with you, that they have a resource, because we know good kids sometimes make bad decisions or end up with people who make bad decisions. So
Yeah.
if we help protect their rights in that respect, and once again, we never advocate breaking the law, but if we can help those who are law-abiding citizens who just get caught in a bad situation, once again, that's better for everybody. And especially if you're military, if you have a clearance, if you're working somewhere, you got to protect that. And we also have an identity theft protection plan, because the last thing you need is someone taking your good name to steal from someone else, and suddenly you're in the middle of an identity theft situation.
Yeah, I mean, there's just so many uses for Legal Shield, and we probably could do 10 shows on all of the different benefits. But I have one more question for you before we wrap up, and that is, what words of wisdom or words of advice would you have for somebody that is looking to either separate or retire in the next 3 to 5 years?
Well, just like in the military, we do mission planning, right? I was in Intel, I was helping to plan the routes, IP to target, right? But we are not, as veterans, going to not think ahead. It's just kind of ingrained in us. So if you're going to get out or retire, in 3 to 5 years, look at your options, find out what your passion is. As I mentioned, we go through things so we can help other people with similar situations. And what have you experienced that you might be able to help? I have helped, some people start that side income. And I got to tell you, last year, because of the way that our model is kind of like an insurance model, the way we get paid, I received a direct deposit every Monday through Friday of 2020, even when people were dealing with challenges, for work that I had done in the first 6 years of my business, because we get 1 year up front and then we get paid every time our member pays after that. But the other thing is just to see the peace of mind of a single mom, realizing that now by being an entrepreneur, she's been able to replace her income. Because when you take what she was making less her childcare expenses, she really wasn't making, a whole lot. Where if we can help her make an extra $500 to $1,000 a month, just, by being consistent and focused, military traits, right? Then that's a blessing as well. The other thing I would say is talk to people who have done what you're thinking about doing. We do that in the military, right? We have mentors, we have people that if we're thinking about maybe a career field change to broaden our, I think they were called PFRs when I was in, but whatever it was, talk to people who are doing it, because they may give you some words of wisdom that make you say, wow, that's really what I want to do, or, stay away. But, in the military, you have to salute smartly and do what you're told to do. As an entrepreneur, you're telling yourself what to do. And if you are good with letting your calendar be your boss, if you're self-driven, if you're motivated, then entrepreneurship is probably great for you. if you're more used to taking orders and you would rather just kind of do what you're told and not have the, I don't want to say stress, but sometimes there is stress in being an entrepreneur and having business. But if you don't want all the weight of it, if you don't want to be the one that has the keys, if you have a storefront, you know, to lock the door, or the one that's responsible for your business, there's nothing wrong with working for someone else. We need who are employees, who are great employees to serve us in things that we need, right?
Absolutely.
You know, take a gut check, as we used to talk about in the military, and just make a list of what fuels your soul. You know, do things that set your soul on fire. And if you can combine that with your business or even as a job, something you're doing. I have friends who have gone to work for veterans organizations, and the difference they make fuels them and fires them. I mean, it did for me until it no longer fit, right? And then for us that have had to miss a lot of family activities, there is a blessing to be able to say yes. And that's something that you can also accomplish, you know, by having your own business. So I'm happy to talk to anyone that has questions about that. I know you are as well, Brenda, because we've done it. Find someone who's done what you want to do. Don't let someone who that's another advice. I'll give you this. Don't take advice from people that have not done what you're thinking about doing. There are so many experts out there who have been employees their whole lives. They've never talked about being an entrepreneur. They've never even thought about it. But they may be the first ones to tell you, well, that may not be a good idea. There's some risk involved, or don't do that. You know, you want the safe position where you just take a paycheck, and that may not fuel your soul. So take advice from people who have done it, not talking in theory. Check yourself and see, you know, what is it that you would like to do? You've got that decision now because you no longer have someone telling you what to do. You do have that freedom. And we all fought for freedom. We fought for freedom of choice, freedom of decision, and, you know, to be able to have your own business. So that kind of answers that question. If you need to clarify anything, Brenda.
Yeah, no worries. No, thank you so much for being on today, Diane. She'll put her contact information in the comments below so that you can reach out to her. You can reach out to me or Diane. We're very well connected in the veteran community too, through veteran networking groups. And that's what I would say is make sure you just get out and start networking. Maybe you don't know what you want to do when you get out or when you retire. But that's why you want to start now planning. Like Diane said, we plan in the military, but so often I find that people don't plan for what they're going to do when they get out. They wait until the last minute. And then it's like, oh, I probably ought to figure this out. Yet we're taught to plan. So plan ahead, and we would love to help you to do that planning and connect you. We both know lots of people. So even if what we do doesn't fit your passion, I'm sure Diane and I probably know somebody that does what you want to do, and we probably can get you connected. So thank you so much for being on, Diane. I really appreciate you taking time out on a Monday morning. And thanks so much for all of your knowledge today. And if you are a veteran or even currently serving military member or a spouse that has a business, let's have a conversation and see if you are a good fit for Military Mondays. And last but not least, somebody needs to hear Diane's message today. So if you're watching this, do me a favor and hit the like button and the share button so that we can get the word out and help whoever it is that needs to hear this message. So with that, I look forward to seeing everybody next Monday on Military Mondays. Bye, everyone.
Thank you, Brenda.